All right, welcome back to the DeVory Darkins show, and it's primary day. We've got primaries in Georgia. We've got the big one in Kentucky with Thomas Massie, and so we're going to spend some time in today's show talking about that, and we'll pick up where we left off yesterday because it's really interesting. I read a lot of your guys' comments, and I guess I didn't make enough time to talk about men and how they played a role in what's happened with the family unit. So I think I will make some time for that. And then we have a few clips that I would love to react to, some clips that I just think continue to demonstrate what's wrong in politics today. But if you haven't already done it, please hit the follow button, get us to 100,000 followers. I mean, we're literally knocking on the door, 99.9 at this point. I would be absolutely grateful. So make sure you hit that follow button. And why should you if you haven't already? Well, if you're on Rumble all day long, I think it's very clear. We kick things off with Graham Allen, who is phenomenal. He brings the energy. And then that's backed up with Dan Bongino and his energy. And then you got Steven Crowder. He's a very funny guy, by the way. And then, you roll into, depending on who's hosting the show, Timcast. And then you get to me finally, and you come across someone who's very calm. So if you like that we balance the whole thing out on Rumble, I think that would be a good reason. And I think I'm fair. I criticize the administration all the time. I criticize Republicans all the time. I think you can't trust someone who isn't willing to criticize their own party. Does that make sense? I think we have a lot of work to do. And unfortunately, we got ourselves into this position where we are having to talk about some of the things I don't like about the party, where Thomas Massie will potentially be primary today. But that's politics, unfortunately. It's interesting how things have changed. If you think about Marjorie Taylor Greene, you think about Thomas Massie, you think about Lauren Boebert, you think about Matt Gaetz, you think about Kevin McCarthy. I mean, a lot of things have changed, right? A lot of things have changed since then. But it's politics, and it's just stuff that doesn't make any sense in a lot of different cases. So we will make time to talk about that, of course. All right, let's pick up where we left off yesterday, which is about why is this epidemic. Oh, also one thing too. We did an interview with Attorney General Ken Paxton, who was just officially endorsed by the president. We'll be playing that interview. It was already done a few days ago, so we'll finally be able to post that and have you guys take a look at what he had to say and why, if you're in Texas, you should vote for him, of course. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, let's pick up where we left off. I told you that the epidemic running around the country right now, where you see a lot of teen takeovers, where it's majority black kids. What's really going on? Is it black fatigue or is it something else? Well, yesterday I explained that it's the breakdown of the family unit. Now, who is at fault mainly for the breakdown of the family unit? Well, from a policy point of view, you could blame Lyndon B. Johnson, the former president. In fact, you could probably blame JFK technically, because those programs originated from his administration. It was LBJ who finally got across the line. And Martin Luther King Jr. endorsed those programs, by the way. A lot of people don't know that. Point being is this. Since then, we've seen a huge drop in the family unit within the black community. And it's easy to blame the politicians. But I'm of the opinion that today in 2026, the blame lies with women because feminism has taken over. Feminism has made men become weak. Men have become simps. Men have continued to allow themselves to be railroaded, in my opinion, and they don't stand up. Now, having said that, some of you guys didn't like that I made it all about women. Well, listen. I want you guys to understand this concept. Who controls access to sex? Answer the question. If someone wants to have sex, if a man wants to have sex, who controls that opportunity? The man or the woman? Think about that for a second. Answer it in the chat. Women control that. Now, who controls whether or not someone gets married? Is it a woman or a man? Answer that. Think about it. Who controls access to marriage and who controls access to sex? Women control access to sex. Men control access to marriage. Women will not get married unless the man kneels down on one knee, gets a ring, and proposes. It's not going to happen if he doesn't do it, or if he doesn't take the initiative to take her down to the courthouse. That's how we're already designed. That's the paradigm so far in our society. Men are usually the ones who initiate marriage. Women are the ones who usually initiate sex or allow it. So when I said that there's a breakdown in the family unit, and why is that? Because women are having sex because they control that with people they have no business having sex with, unprotected, and without the demand of marriage. That's why I said that. Now, one could say, well, why do women behave this way? Well, you could blame her father, for sure, and you could blame her mother as well. You see, somewhere along the line, society has programmed women to get out of marriage way too early, to divorce over literally nothing. And I'm not talking about someone who was beaten to the end of their life. I'm not talking about that person, okay? I'm not talking about that person at all. I'm talking about women who are filing for divorce because they're making more money than their husband. They're not doing the work they need to do to find a better way to communicate with their husband. We have to understand, most men and most women don't understand the opposite sex. So imagine that. We live in a world today where people are frightened to get married, but throw on top of that, they don't even take the time to understand the opposite sex. Most women don't understand how men think and what men want. And men also sometimes don't understand how women think and what women want. Now, I don't think it takes long for men to understand it because it's logic, okay? Women want security, stability. They want to feel safe. That's inherently what it is, okay? And you'd be shocked at how simple it is to accomplish that, by the way. But anyways, now if we look at it the other way, men want someone that is going to cooperate, not someone they want to fight with. Okay. All right. That's I made that clear yesterday. Now, these two basic examples on the opposite side of the from both sides, men and women, these are simple concepts, but most people don't even understand them. They may have heard of them once or twice, but they really do not take any time to, stew in that. Okay, well, if I'm a female, what does it mean that men want cooperation? What would that mean for me? How do I accomplish that? Have I been raised to be able to do that? You see, think about it. Women who are raised to do things without men, and they were programmed to think that way, they're not people that are very cooperative in relationships. That's why they don't get married at a young age. And the relationships they have, they don't last very long because they don't know how to cooperate. Now, when I say cooperate, a lot of people, because they're in their feelings, oh, well, what do you mean by that? He's going to control her. This is the interesting part about it. When women are in the right energy, they're not being controlled. It just happens naturally. It's not a matter of control. It's just they know what they're supposed to do, and the man knows what he's supposed to do. And it complements each other. Anyways, so we talked yesterday about women, and I just want to get through this quickly so I could just address this point and then move on. So, just as a personal example, I didn't have a father growing up. Never had a father. And so, my tolerance towards men is like zero, okay? I don't buy excuses. I don't entertain laziness. I don't hang around men who are negative. And so, what should men be doing and how did they play a role in all of this? Well, men stopped being men. They allowed to be railroaded. They bent the knee and they forgot how to stand up for themselves. Why? Because society has made them feel guilty of being men. You know? I mean, let's, a silly example, right? Well, I don't think I want to use that one. Let me think through this really quickly here. So, because I didn't have a father, let me go this way. Because I didn't have a father, I was extra emotional in my 20s. Angry, sensitive, take everything personal. That's because I got that from my mother. She's a female. So this is why when women are talking about, yeah, I'd rather have a kid out of wedlock than get married, you're an idiot. Don't do that to your child. That's especially a son. That's terrible. Anyways, I joined the military, which was somewhat helpful. But ultimately, I had to take it upon myself to understand how to be a man. And why am I saying this? Because a lot of men out there are in my position. They may have to learn how to be men because they didn't have a father. So where do you start? One, you start with Jesus. That's where you start. The Bible clearly articulates exactly what men should be. In fact, and listen, I'm not a Bible expert, okay? I have a study group every Saturday, but I don't know all the verses by heart, if that makes sense. But I do know a couple of points that I want to communicate here. And one is that somewhere in the Bible, and I know someone already knows the chapter and verse, where God clearly lays out that a man who can't take care of his family is worthless. He's literally contradicting his purpose. He's one of the worst people. Now, some of you guys already know exactly where I'm going, so please share if you know what the chapter verse is. Put it in the chat for people. He clearly lays it out. And so men should start obviously in the church or their relationship with God and understand. And it's not, you have to read every page of the Bible to understand this. It's the apps today. I have this app on my phone called Bible Note. I mean, it's not difficult to get the lessons you need from the Bible and apply it to your life. It's just taking the initiative to do so. And so one of the biggest lessons that I remember we were talking about on the group, it's a men's group, is if you're not taking care of your family, you're worthless. And the interesting part about it, that's why a lot of women don't understand about men, is men inherently want to protect and provide. When they are either, called out, alienated over that, because maybe the woman makes more money, it's not going to work out. That's the problem with feminism. Feminism has literally allowed women to try to replace men. It just doesn't work. At any rate, that's why it's on men to take the initiative to do the work. And if you don't do the work, nobody's going to be able to save you. And why is there so much attention on women, if you really think about it? When we talk about relationships and marriage, why is there a lot of conversation around women? Because men inherently already know what it is. Men already know that if they don't get it done, they are a bum. They already know that. They know if they don't make it happen, they can end up on the corner. They know if they make the wrong choices, they'll be in prison. They know if they don't make the right connections, work with the right people, they get fired. That's the way it is in the world for men. When you go out there in the marketplace for your career, your job, your business, men don't give a shit about you. Men know this. Men know it's eat or die. So men don't technically need to be reminded of the stakes. They're well aware of it. The issue, though, is some men are caught because they weren't raised properly. They didn't have a right. They didn't have a father, and sometimes they're so ignorant because of their upbringing, they don't know where to start. The best place to start is with God. That's the best place to start. And then second step is you got to change your paradigm, because if you were raised without a father, that means your belief systems are getting in your way already. Results show that. If you can't maintain a relationship with a woman, if you can't make the money you need to make, if you can't maintain the lifestyle or take care of your health, that means you have the wrong habits and belief systems. Why? Because of your upbringing. No one put it in your mind to be overweight or to not take care of yourself or not to go out there and take a risk. No, you learn those ideas, or you were exposed to those ideas because of the environment that you grew up in. Now, I think what happens, and not everybody grows up this way, I was put in a position where I had to make it happen. I was forced to at a very young age. And there's something to be said when people grow up that way. It's either one or two ways. One, they're going to be really successful in life, or two, they're not going to make it. And I'm very blessed and grateful to say I'm the former. But not everybody is put in that position. So sometimes people, maybe they had a father at one point in time, and a divorce happened and they left. And so they still didn't get the teachings that they needed. But the interesting part is it's all in the Bible. That's the interesting part about it. That's the one thing I learned. Really, there's two things I learned from my study group. Number one, everything starts with your relationship with Christ. If you start there, you're already operating on the right foundation. Step two, the lessons are there. The lessons are there on how to be a better man. And step three, and this is what I've been talking about yesterday and today, you have to change in here. That's it. The problem is most people don't know how to change. How does a person's behavior change? Well, you have to reach that point of being fed up. And so men, they have to get to a point where they say, you know what? I'm done being a bum. I'm done being lazy. I'm done buying into this rhetoric that I'm nothing, and that it's wrong for me to want to provide for my family. It's wrong for me to want to be married. It's wrong for me to want to make more money. You'd be shocked at how many men have accepted those ideas. That's the repetition that I'm talking about. If you're on social media every single day and all you hear is about why men are bad, sooner or later you might start to believe it. Now, you name me one TV show, daytime TV show, that promotes men. Name one. Name one where it's about men. It doesn't exist. Most daytime TV shows are about what? Women. Who watches these TV shows? Women, not men. So women sit around all this time watching these shows, getting fed propaganda. That's what happens. Anyways, so step one for men out there, it's going to be hard work. But if you're like me and you didn't have a father, it'll be hard. But it's not impossible. And the interesting part about it is we're designed to get it. So once you start to get the information, once you start to apply the information, you'll get it. And you will be better. Especially if you're a younger dude. If you're like 27, 28, and you start this now, when you're in your 30s, you will thank yourself. But a lot of people, they have unreasonable expectations. They want everything to change tonight. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. So hopefully that was clear about what we discussed yesterday. This whole black fatigue and teen takeovers and 15, 17-year-old in Austin who shot up the place. All these issues are a result of the breakdown of the family. No father, obviously. But why? Women do not demand marriage. They should. That's why I said the comment yesterday. I'd rather have gone into a foster care with two parents than been raised by a single mother. I find myself to be on the right side of things, meaning, I'm in the small minority, okay? Most people, single parent, adopted, mother, doesn't turn out well. They have a lot of issues in their life. So yeah, if that's you, those are the steps. God the lessons in the Bible, how to be a man, and then you have to change your mindset. That's it. You do that, it's off to the races. It's off to the races. And that's what we need now more than ever in America, because that's not the sexy topic. It's not. And social media plays a role in it, as you guys are aware. When you go on to social media, you see, especially, let's say, Instagram, you see a lot of content that gives you the wrong image of what life is truly all about. And this happens on both sides. You have women who are essentially naked on Instagram, posting 1,000 selfies a day. It's all about her. And then you have men who, they want to get that nice car, they want to get the nice watch, all this other stuff, but none of that means anything in the end. Those are false gods. I had a conversation, my wife and I, we had a conversation a couple of weeks ago, or about a month ago. And I said, I learned a very valuable lesson blowing up, basically. Going from making, when we had the solar roofing business, I was making good money. I would say about 130 as the owner of the business, but it was a struggle. Anyways, going from that to the success we've seen with the show, it could play with your mind. It could play with your identity. See, this is another lesson for men. You can go out there and make $1 million if you like. Heck, you can make $500,000 in a month. I know people who've done that. The point is that when that happens, you better be ready. See, if your relationship isn't right with Christ and you don't have a great deal of emotional intelligence, that amount of money will mess with you in the wrong way, and it will be a disaster. That's what happens with people who win the lottery. They're not emotionally ready for that. That's not who they are. That's why they blow it. It's the same thing with athletes and celebrities. They've yet to change what's in here. They got the money because of the economy. That's why I'm saying capitalism, anybody can get rich. But being rich is a totally different thing. And so you'll get these athletes who will get rich, but they're not rich. They got a lot of money in their bank account, but in here, they're bankrupt. So it's only a matter of time. See, that's why the foundation starts with our relationship with Christ first. And the lessons that is taught in the Bible, it lays it all out. And even if you're not into that, just a simple dedication to studying the human mind will teach you what to do. Timeless success principles. You have to understand, don't attach your identity to material things. And so I was telling my wife, I said, we live a great life. We live in this nice house. We got to move to Texas and live in a nice area. But that's not who we are. We've been blessed to be able to experience these things, but that's not who we are. That's not our identity. Our identity is rooted in God's plan, gratitude, and what can I do today to be better than I was yesterday and serve the people to my left and right. That's all I want to do every single day. That's it. But America, because it uses materialistic things, it wants to distract us from that. And when we get distracted, you know how you are distracted? How do you know? Because you stop being grateful. You stop appreciating things. You find that you're no longer enjoying your life. You find that every single minute of every single day, you're complaining. You're being negative about stuff. And you've forgotten how far you've come. That's how you know. And then what happens is you start propping up other people on pedestals. And then what happens is you start looking at that car, that house, that watch as the God. The funny thing is those things aren't worth nothing in the end. And we know this. We've heard this lesson thousands of times. But, I go through all of this because that's the lessons for men. You know, you can have a nice car. It doesn't mean you're happy. You can have a lot of money. Doesn't mean you're happy. You can be that executive of that company. Doesn't mean you're happy. There's a lot of people who are rich. They're unhappy people. Right? So, you know, you've got to protect your mind, okay? And a lot of people, they say, well, man, DeVory, man, I'd love to make $1 million. Yeah, I'm sure you would. I mean, it's nice, but you'd be shocked at the problems that come as a result, especially if you're not mentally prepared for it. And that's why we should be mentally prepared, and we should continue to mentally develop this mindset of focusing on the main thing, which is inside, internal, you, not what's happening on the outside. And if men would do more of this, they could block out these, you know, the rhetoric coming from feminists. There's nothing wrong with wanting to go out there, make money, provide for your family, protect your family, take care of yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you go on social media, they make you feel like there is something wrong with it. And that's why women have been programmed to buy into these concepts where men are less than, women need to be propped up. There's this whole women gender gap, as you guys have heard previously, or wage gap, which is a total joke. And that women are not equal and all this other stuff. It's so far from the truth. It's just the talking point they use to push the message. And the message is, women, you could have it all, and you don't have to accept any consequences. And you know what? Maybe they're right. Maybe she doesn't have to accept any consequences, but you know who will? Her kids. Who doesn't have who when the father isn't there? Oh, plenty of consequences there. You have no idea what it does to a child who does not have two parents in the household. All numbers should support this. You want to set up a child for for failure? Don't get married. Now, I'm not the marriage counselor, okay? I'm not marriage expert. I'm not saying that at all, okay? But what I'm saying is all we have to do is look at the numbers. The numbers tell us what we should do. It's not really that difficult. We are just distracted from the propaganda overall. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, let's move on to what's going on with Thomas Massey and some of these things that I want to talk about today. Okay. Let's see. Let me go through some of your comments, and then we will cue that up, I suppose. One moment. All right, here we go. Seems to be a glitch with the chat here. Let's see. Hold on. We're trying to get your comments here on the screen. Give us a moment here. There we go. All right, here we go. My mom was a widow. There was no men, father figures, and my relationship with men were always screwed up because of it. Yeah. So we don't have any control of how we start, but we do control how we finish. And so if we're in these positions, we have to take it upon ourselves to do the work. My whole life, people worship the lotto more than God, right? Okay, so this is a very good point. Young men are afraid of women wiping them out financially. Well, lesson number one is you can't make decisions from fear. Number two, and this is another thing for men, they have to understand how to vet women. And if they're so scared of the money, I mean, there is something called a prenup, obviously. So that's not a reason not to get married. That's ridiculous. See, I don't do things out of fear. I do things out of abundance. It goes back to mindset. Yeah, that is the way that I see it. Maybe you guys disagree, but that's just me. I think another one I've heard is what's another one I've heard? I think that's a big one. Oh, another one I've heard is there's no value for men to get married. I disagree with that. I definitely disagree with that. There's a lot of, especially in the red pill movement, people say there's no value in men getting married. Well, if you're operating outside of Christianity, maybe the answer is yes. Right? If you're not living your life based on biblical principles, the answer would be yes. But if you're living your life in alignment with those principles, the answer would be no. There's plenty of value there. What is the value exactly, DeVory? The value of raising the next generation of leaders in the right way? My son every day is a careful reminder of what I love about being a parent. I mean, yes, kids are going to annoy you. They're going to be an inconvenience at times because that's just part of being a human being. There's no doubt about that. But man, I don't think there's any other person on the planet that can make you laugh the way your kids do. What's better than that? What's better than that? What's better than seeing them grow? It's creation. We love creation. That's why we're miserable when we're not creating anything. Best compliment, my son wants a wife like me. That is a good compliment. And the interesting thing is, a lot of people complain about our country. Where do you start? You start in the home. You start raising kids the right way. That's what happened to us. The problem is, it's very easy to see as far as culture is concerned. What happened is the breakdown of the family. We started coddling kids and giving them participation trophies and catering to their feelings. We forgot to parent. Whole generation of that. Now look at where we are. You say one criticism, my feelings are hurt. So the solution is doing the opposite of what we've been doing. We got to make parenting great again, as they may say. We should be taking pride in that. We should be investing in that. And we don't need the government to get it done. That's the interesting part. I think parents have depended on the government too much. Too much. I need to say this, DeVory. Not all women are the problem. I always feel bad when it sounds like all women do is sit around and be toxic. I've worked hard to be a parent, taking care of my husband and kids. Yeah, I used to listen to other people when they would describe issues like this. And now I understand how they feel when people say things like that. And what I mean by that is, like, I can't every single minute say, "Hey, I'm talking about this percentage of people." You guys inherently know who I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the women who are doing the right thing in life. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the women who have bought into feminism. That's who I'm talking about. And we know they have, because all we have to do is look at their results, their lifestyle, their relationships or lack thereof. And then all we have to do is look at children and their behavior. When we have children getting into fights at a Chipotle and throwing chairs and tables, and then we have children who are 15, 17 teenagers shooting up Austin at firefighters, we know it's a breakdown of the family. That's who I'm talking about. It's like someone yesterday, the comment, "Oh, are you talking about all black people?" No, duh. Come on. Of course I'm not. I'm talking about the part of the black community that is stuck in the past, who have yet to transcend and rise above negative beliefs. And we know that because all we do is look at the behavior. I cannot say, let me say this. If you're going to watch the show, please understand, every single minute, you will not hear me say, not all, not all, not all. I'm talking in generalities. Okay? That's who I'm talking about. At any rate, if we depend on the government too much, we become slaves, and then we lose the muscle that we've been given, obviously, to create our own circumstances. That's why progressives want people to depend on the government. Mondani wants people to depend on the government because that's the way they see it. They don't believe people can figure it out on their own. They don't have that belief. If they had that belief, what Mondani would be doing is taking the money he's investing in these 5 government-owned grocery stores and investing that into the existing bodegas. Hey, you know what? We've noticed this bodega here has been here for at least 50 years. Let's go in, renovate the place, expand it, give them some grants so they can expand their business. Let's give them some marketing dollars. Let's set up an actual event to promote our bodegas. No, that's not what he's doing. But that's what the solution would be, because the market will take care of itself. What the government's doing there is disrupting the market, because they want people slaves to the government. More money, more power, more control. Now, if you're a conservative, you don't like that. Less control, less power, less government. You see, we need to have guardrails. We need to conserve what works in our country. But we don't need 1,000 different programs to make that happen. In fact, we need less. Less is more. I'll give you guys a great lesson here. You ready for it? And the entrepreneurs in the chat know exactly what I mean by this. If it's complicated, you're going to lose your money. If it's simple, you have a good chance. Doesn't mean you'll still make money, but you have a good chance. Probability is higher. But if you're running a business and it's complicated, you're going in the wrong direction. Well, that's life. The government likes to do things that are complicated. Just keep it simple, man. You don't need to be creating government-owned grocery stores. You don't need to be investing into LGBTQ this and that directors. You don't need to be doubling down on another DEI director. What you need to do is the simple things. Keep people safe. Make sure the criminals don't go back on the street. Invest in the education. Invest in small business. And watch things flourish. But, I don't know where it comes from. Suicidal empathy, call it whatever you want. They don't see it that way. They like to make things complicated. And it goes back to what we were saying earlier, another lesson for men. When you're all caught up in these materialistic things, it's complicated. complicated. I think I learned this lesson younger in my life when I had a studio in San Luis Obispo, or technically Pismo Beach. Now, if you're from California, you know what I'm talking about. Pismo Beach happens to be probably one of the most beautiful coastal cities in California. No question. Very nice area. Historic, clean, no homeless. People are nice. Well, I got a studio there when I was younger. And the studio literally is exactly what I'm saying. It was one room. You had I guess a kitchen, if you want to call it, and then a stand-up shower. And you couldn't do jumping jacks in the shower. I mean, it was small. But the lesson I learned there was how simple life was when I lived in a studio. I only had what I needed. Nothing extra, nothing fancy. I had a futon, or right, the bed that folds up. You know, I had that. I had 2 plates, 2 cups, 2 bowls, a couple of forks, spoons, and a knife. That's all I needed. A couple of towels. I didn't need much. And you learn pretty quickly, wow, you know, life's really simple this way. So, you know, the government, they can't make it simple. They can't help themselves. They just can't. All right, let's play. Let me go to this. This is message from today's sponsor. As an advocate of truth, you know that women shouldn't have to share locker rooms with men. Women shouldn't have to compete against male athletes, and they shouldn't be punished for speaking the truth regarding that. But across America, that's exactly what's happening. Men are allowed to compete in women's sports, robbing girls of sponsorships, medals, titles, and safety. Now the U.S. Supreme Court has heard 2 cases. This could be a watershed moment in this fight to protect biological reality and fairness. This is why our sponsor of today's show, Alliance Defending Freedom, needs your voice today. Visit joinadf.com/DeVory or text DeVory to 83848 to add your name to their declaration and side with truth and fairness. Or you could scan the QR code on the screen. This is the right moment to push back. Stand with Alliance Defending Freedom. Okay. All right. So this thing with Thomas Massie, right? Is it going to finally be over? What do I mean by that? The Republican Party across the board has got to get its back to a point where we are clearly unified across the same goal and the same vision. Now, obviously, a lot of that has to do with the president. We know that there are people who don't like what the president has done with Iran. There's no question about that. You have a part of the Republican Party who, and I'm not saying this is the majority because I don't think it is, but disagrees with his choice regarding Iran. And we go back to 2024. It's a great time back then, wasn't it? You know what the difference between 2024 and 2026 is? The Republican Party was unified around one message. We need to stop the woke. We need to destroy the woke mind virus. We need to push back on progressives. We need to get inflation under control. We need to close the border. We need to bring costs down, drug costs as well, which was a thing that the president celebrated yesterday with Mark Cuban, which was a very surreal moment. I don't know if you guys saw that. We need to deport, mass deportation. We need to crack down on crime. Now, you were with me when we reacted to Steven Crowder versus Nick Fuentes during that debate, and Steven Crowder was very clear. Nick Fuentes and his rhetoric, he provides no data to prove that the president hasn't delivered on these things. Now, you may be in a disagreement with the president regarding H-1B visas, which is totally fine. I'm actually with you on that. But H-1B visas does not dismiss what's happened on the border. No one's crossed the border. No one. Like, that's not hyperbole. That's an objective fact. No one has crossed the border. And so we know people have been deported. Now, you may say not enough. That's fine. Because you can always do more. But you can't say they haven't been deporting people, because they have. And then if you want to get into crime, I mean, do we have to go to D.C. as an example? I mean, it's clear. Murder in D.C. fell off a cliff. Well, the president has special authority. You can't do that in other cities, obviously. But they have found success in Memphis. They found some success in New Orleans. Didn't find success in Chicago because Chicago outright rejected any type of collaboration. Didn't find any success in Los Angeles. And based on recent reports in San Francisco, that didn't work out either. Because remember, he was going to send people into San Francisco, but then the mayor called him and said, hey, let's work this out. Well, unfortunately, things haven't worked out. It's only gotten worse. And let's not even get into Portland and Seattle. I mean, you could just forget about those places. And Minneapolis as well. Why am I saying all these things? Well, we now get to a point where Thomas Massie has staked his career, essentially, on the Epstein files. So we went from being unified on one issue, or a multitude of issues, to having strong disagreements with Iran, Epstein, Israel. I'd probably say those three things, and maybe H-1B visas. I would say that's also a hot topic as well. You put those four on the table, and you have people picking sides to the point where they are not willing to compromise at all. And that's Thomas Massie. He's not going to compromise. He's standing on what he believes in. He went all in on the Epstein files. He's voted against the Republican Party quite a few times, by the way. And people say he's really America first, that he's more America first than the president. And maybe that's true. I guess it just depends on what your perception is of America first. But my job isn't to convince you one way or another. I will just say this: the political reality is that we're going to find out today who really has the capital. Is it the president or is it Thomas Massie? We are going to find out. We found out with Bill Cassidy, Senator Cassidy out of Louisiana. He's done. So we're going to find out if the same fate will come for Thomas Massie. Now, what do you guys think? You think he will be officially primaried? It's a good question. John Cornyn did not get the endorsement. Ken Paxton did. And Ken Paxton gave John Cornyn an out. Hey, man, I'll drop out of the race, but you got to make sure we pass the Save America Act. Never heard anything after that, right? You see, what's interesting is, regardless if you support Thomas Massie or not, do you agree with the idea of voting out at least 65% of the Republican Party out of Congress? I don't think they should be there. I think we should have outsiders as the majority. Because what happens is, and I learned this in the military, why is it when you're on Title 10 active duty for the Army, you only stay in your duty station for maybe 2-3 years max? What happens after that? They move you to a new one. Well, why? Because you become complacent. It's natural human behavior. If you're in one place for a very long time, you're not the person you were when you walked through that door. You're not as energized. You're not as disciplined. You're not as serious. You have become complacent. Over time, brick by brick, chip by chip, you have become softer. That's what happens with members of Congress. I don't think you can help it. You see, at one point, I probably don't even blame them. If you're a member of Congress and you have access to information that could further the well-being of your family, and you know you're going to be able to spend at least 20, 40 years in Congress, why wouldn't you do it? Of course you would do it. That's why when they're screaming about President Trump is the most corrupt president in the history and that his family is profiting off the presidency, what do you expect to happen? What did you think they were going to do? You literally try to lock them up, throw away the key, and you try to bankrupt the president and his businesses. And we already know they were officially debanked. So you thought they were just gonna, oh, he's the president now, we'll just sit back. Absolutely not. They're gonna get theirs. There's no doubt about that. Now, ethically, we may come to the realization that's not necessarily a good thing. But I'm not shocked because Congress has been doing it from the very beginning. They will get theirs. They'll get theirs before you get yours. That's for sure. They'll take care of themselves before they take care of the American people. We know that. How do we know that? Because when the government shut down, who continues to get paid? They do. So why do I say all this? Well, I say all this because for Thomas Massie, he staked his career on this whole Epstein stuff, Epstein scandal. And we're going to find out if it pays off. And him working with Ro Khanna, I don't like that. Because in the end, what happened? Let's look at the results. All of this back and forth with the president for what exactly? Anybody arrested? Has there been any indictments, convictions, any perjuries? Anything in the files that has led to prosecution? No. Just more drama and distraction overall. Now, I don't think it's Thomas Massie's fault, by the way. I would argue that's former Attorney General Pam Bondi. And whether she meant to do it or whether she indirectly did it, bottom line is that whole rollout was a disaster. No question. No doubt about it. And I didn't like the president's response to it either. I think he should have handled it differently. I think he should have leaned in on it. I think he should have brought the victims to the Oval Office. Don't give that to Democrats. Don't give that to Ro Khanna. Don't give that to Thomas Massie. But he didn't do it. So we are where we are now, and it's led us to this point where the president and Thomas Massie have been at war with each other. Guess we're going to find out who wins. According to history, the president will win. But we'll see. So the question is it over for him? Is it over? Is it over for any Republican who decides to challenge the president? And the interesting part about Kentucky in this primary, it's only registered Republicans that are allowed to vote. So technically, they would call this in politics a closed primary. You can't, as an independent or Democrat, vote for Thomas Massie. That's another thing. And I'm reading some of your guys' comments here as they come in. Someone put, Nick crushed that Crowder debate. I don't know what you were watching. Maybe you were watching a different part of that debate. We watched a part where it was all about voting for a Democrat or another candidate besides J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio, that the Trump administration's over with, that the president hasn't done anything. He's failed to deliver on all promises. That's what Nick Fuentes said, that he didn't do anything, that he's failed across the board, that immigration, yeah, nothing there either. Nothing to celebrate there either. That crime, I mean, he said that. I'm not saying that. He said that. And what you found was Steven Crowder is operating from a set of facts, and Nick Fuentes is operating from a set of feelings. That was really what became obvious. And listen, I think when people go to criticize the administration, I just think they do the lazy way of doing it. If you want to criticize the administration, there's plenty of ways to do it. I'll give you an example. What the hell is wrong with the president when he sat down with Sean Hannity and said that he wouldn't mind more Chinese students coming over to America? What the hell's going on there? What the hell's going on with the president saying, yeah, China should be able to buy more land in America? What? What's going on? Now, he may say that because maybe there's an active talks behind closed doors, maybe. But who the hell am I, right? I'm just some guy on the internet. But as an American citizen, it's cringe when I hear that. It's like, what are you doing, bro? America first, like, people don't want to, I don't want to hear about China. I don't want China students. I don't want Israel. I don't want any of that. Just focus on what's going on here. But I don't know who's advising him on China. I don't know who's advising him on Epstein, and I don't know who's advising him on Iran. But whoever advised him in all three situations, I think they failed him. That's my personal opinion. It's my personal opinion. But see, that's what I'm saying. If you're going to criticize the president, just do it the right way. Don't be stupid. Don't say he hasn't done anything. I mean, more violent crime arrests than the previous administration, and it's not even close. It's a record. The border is closed. That's a record. Drug costs are coming down. I mean, that's meaningful. The Trump accounts for newborns, that's a huge thing. No tax on tits, Social Security, overtime, these things. That's never been done in history. Fraud, let's not even get into that. Hey, but he's not doing anything. No, what's happening is he's doing some things that you don't like, and now you want to throw a fit over it. That's what's happening. And so because he did something you don't like, we're going to throw it all out the window. That's immaturity. Now, let's see here. Yeah, his 47 agenda, you say completed. I mean, he's gotten most of it done. It's a good question right here. Who would Charlie Kirk vote for? It's a very good question. Very good question. Some people say Thomas Massie. Others would probably say Charlie Kirk would side with the president. Here's a good comment. America doesn't like wars and climbing gas prices. I know. See, the crazy part is you have people still crying about Truth Social posts. They cry about all these things, but they don't actually talk about the legitimate criticisms. Like, isn't it fascinating that Democrats spent so much time criticizing the president over January 6th instead of criticizing him over COVID? He's the one that originated the vaccine. No one's ever criticized him for that, but he deserves it. It originated from him. He wanted to roll it out so fast. So he rolled out this experimental vaccine, and then Biden came in and mandated it. They both are at fault. But see, people have Trump derangement syndrome to the point they can't even articulate a legitimate argument against the president on things. That's the fascinating part. So I say all this because, that debate, no, he did not crush it. And even with the criticisms, I take that over what we would get with another Biden administration or Gavin Newsom administration or AOC administration, whoever they're going to put up. I would take that 10 times over because I know the border is secure, which means we're not going to have an invasion anymore. That's good. We know we're cracking down on fraud. That's good. We know the FBI is actually prioritizing crime. That's good. We know the Department of Education, the only reason why it hasn't officially been dismantled is because of Congress. The president has done all he could. So I would say that's good too. Vaccines are not mandated right now. That's good. I would take that. Boys and girls sports, no thank you. We could keep going. I think you guys understand. Yeah, it has to be anything but blue. But the point that I'm making is when people move or when people attempt to criticize President Trump because they feel like they're being fair, they're making the wrong arguments. And even with those criticisms that I went over, I mean, just look at Zohran Mamdani, look at Brandon Johnson, look at Abigail Scamberger, look at Katie Wilson, Karen Bass, Mayor of San Francisco, I don't even know his name on the top of my head, Jacob Frey, Minneapolis. The results show it. The results show it. Someone said, I believe Trump was led astray in a lot of areas in his first term, but I will say he is smarter this time around. Absolutely. Yeah, because he didn't know anybody. We had that interview with Sean Spicer. He broke that down. I mean, the president wasn't able to vet people. Even today, I would argue they still have a vetting issue based on a lot of firings, a lot of people resigning. I mean, if you want to know whether or not the Trump administration has a vetting issue, just go follow Laura Loomer. She'll tell you all about it. Let's see here. I think we may have to hop off right here. Take my wife to an appointment. Let me confirm. Yeah, it's at 2 p.m. All right. So let me go ahead and wrap this up. Actually, you know what we are going to do? Let me see if we are able to do this. No, I'm going to have to wrap it up. Okay. All right. Let me get to the end here with everything. And so I started the show off with picking up where we left off yesterday. A lot of the behavior we're seeing with younger adults, teenagers, and children, where they are disrupting the peace. They're shooting up the place. That's a result of the breakdown of the family. Women control access to sex. Men control access to marriage. Feminism has clearly programmed women who buy into that, not all women, where they don't need men and they'd rather have a kid out of wedlock than to be married. And I would argue that's one of the worst decisions a woman could make. In fact, that kid would be better off going into foster care and getting two parents than sticking around with her. But that's my own personal opinion because I was raised by a single mother. But on the flip side, men, they already get it. Men have not been swept up by feminism. What has happened is feminism has discouraged them from being who they inherently know that they are. And all men need to do is turn to Christ, start reading that Bible and get those lessons, surround themselves with stronger men, and work on what's going on up in here because of upbringing, and they will be fine. Because men are logical. It doesn't take long for men to get it. So that's why women sometimes get more criticism than men, because men, we are inherently know. If we don't make it happen, it is what it is. It's over for us. We don't make it happen, we'll be on the corner, homeless. We don't make it happen, we'll be drugged out in the prisons. We know that. If I don't get it done, I'll be fired. Men know that. So, you know, that is what we talked about a little bit. And then we got into Thomas Massey here towards the end. I guess we're going to have to find out, you know, who has the political power. And after this, can we finally get back to being unified across the Republican Party? I mean, it's May, and so when is the Republican Party going to start encouraging and communicating a message to get different groups of voters out to vote for the party? I don't think it's enough to expect people to say Democrats are batshit crazy, so I will vote for Republican. You got to give them something to vote for. So we have to communicate that. And so we talked a little bit about that. All right, guys, that is the show for today. Thank you for sticking around. Make sure you hit the follow button if you haven't already. I mean, we're pretty much knocking on 100,000, 99.9. So very grateful for you guys. God bless you. God bless the United States of America.